Sometimes you just need to take the slips out and bowl defensively. And you also need to be careful with your computer's defense as well. If you need a VPN, go Nord. NordVPN.com/Kimber to get a 2-year contract with a discount, plus 4 extra months and gifts in some markets. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the show notes. So put in some dot balls and turn them into maidens via NordVPN.com/Kimber. Welcome to the scoreboard. Morning, everyone. I'm Jared Kimber, and yeah, we're going to need to do a live show. I'll put this on the main channel. I'll put this on every channel. I would tattoo this show on my arm if I could. And I'll be honest, I feel a little bit like Mohammad Rizwan flinging the ball in the air to Mohammad Amir at the moment and just watching it sail past him without him being able to do anything at all. Because my mind is fried, and that was just an incredible game. And even if Pakistan had managed to win at the end, it still would have been an incredible game. Even if USA had held on the first time, it would have been incredible. Even if Pakistan hadn't bowled 18 runs in the super over with 1 boundary, which we will explain, because that's the whole thing. I want to explain how incredible this game was from beginning to end and how we got here. Not spiritually, maybe morally, I don't know, certainly emotionally. Anyway, both teams lost this match from great positions. USA were so on top in that chase, absolutely cruising. And there were times when Pakistan was batting and they were absolutely cruising in their innings as well. And then Pakistan got completely on top. It fell apart. Both teams were panicking. Both teams choked at different times. The big difference between those two sides is only one of these teams have ever actually won a World Cup before. And only one of these teams was playing in their first World Cup. The USA just beat Pakistan, and it will need years and years, maybe decades of analysis to fully unpack what happened in this game, because this is quite clearly one of the biggest upsets in the cricket of history that we have ever seen. So let's rewind back. I don't know if that's the rewind button, but let's go back to the start for a minute and try and drink all this back in and try and work out what the hell was going on in this game. If you are on the main channel, remember we do all these lives every day on the normal channel. So come over to the normal channel. Sorry, we do these shows every day on the live channel, I should say. So come over, Jared Kimber Live, and we every day we do one show where we do proper analysis. I can't promise proper analysis here because I feel like I'm still out there in the field involved in this game at the moment. But I'll do the best that I can to try and work out how the USA beat Pakistan in this Cricket World Cup. Let's start with the catch of Stephen Taylor. The batter matters, obviously. Mohammad Rizwan is a really, really important person, and he allows for Pakistan to play at a certain pace, to dictate the game a little bit, and then allow for Shadab and Iftikhar and Azam Khan and these sorts of guys to come in and hit later. So Rizwan as a wicket is really important. But it's more about the actual catch. It just looked like it was a ball that was past Stephen Taylor. And we know he's a very fine cricketer and, has played in the CPL. Has been playing in the USA for a long time. He's one of the few USA players that, most people know. That's all well and good. No one has any issue with that at all. There's a big difference between that and the catch that we just saw. That was an absolute world-class catch and really set up the rest of that innings for the USA. Because not long after that, they lost another wicket, which is fine. Pakistan, we're trying to put pressure back on. They lost a wicket early on. But then it was the Fakhar Zaman paddle shot that I think is in the next huge part of this game. Because they're 2 wickets down. Fakhar Zaman comes out like he's going to hit every ball for 12. Just looked like he was seeing the ball incredibly well. And he plays a paddle. And look, we've seen these paddles go in so many different directions at so many different times. And this is just the one that went in a way that could only ever be caught, right? There are the ones that you hit up in the air and the guy has to work his way back on, or there's, a bit of a dive in either way, or there's quick reflexes involved. And just every now and again, you get the paddle where the worst fielder in the world, which is, well, at least the worst fielder on your side, is fielding usually at short fine leg. And yet you still manage to hit it to them in a way that not even they can drop it. Well, sometimes they still manage you. But 3 wickets in the power play, we all know about that stat. It's hugely important. That puts the USA ahead in a normal game. It probably doesn't put them ahead in this particular game Certainly not with the markets. Some wind predictors had them ahead, but I think that was a bit optimistic at that stage. But it puts them ahead of the position they thought they would be in. But we talked about this beforehand. One way that USA can put pressure on teams, other than the fact that they're good at hitting sixes and they have a lot of guys down the order who can do that, is that they're very good in the power play at getting wickets. And, they got wickets. I actually thought perhaps their best bowler in the power play was, what's his name? Net Travelka. Who obviously will come back later. We will mention him again. But I thought he was absolutely fantastic in that power play as well, just moving the ball around. And it didn't swing like some of the other days that we've seen in these games, right? It wasn't swinging around the corners, but he bowled accurately enough and kept the pressure on enough to just make sure that Scotland's playing the other game. That's also there. To just make sure that Pakistan had to keep taking small risks, right? And throwing their bat around occasionally, and going at the other end, which are probably things that they weren't massively looking at doing at that stage. And so we know that the Pakistan's first 6 overs is usually where they try and build that big block, and the USA are very good at striking. And so taking away Pakistan's beginning was really, really huge, right? And I love the fact that, they also mixed up pace and spin. I think it shows you how much cricket has changed, that USA as a cricket team are in a World Cup, and then they will open the bowling at home with spin against Pakistan. Like, there's so many layers to that I cannot possibly unravel right at the moment. Let's go to Babar Azam. We know that the problem with these elite scoring anchors is generally always the same thing. And it's not when things are going right, it's when things are going wrong. They sometimes just get a little bit caught, right? They get a little bit too defensive and everything else. It's a phenomenal innings when you go back and have a look at what Babar Azam did. He scored 44 off 43. He was in for over an hour. He batted all the way through to the death. And he hit 2 sixes. And yet, that strike rate is 102.32. And I think it's important to use the full decimals on this particular one. That was a slow innings. Now, there were many reasons for that. And a lot of that has to go back to the way that USA bowl, the way they mix their bowls around, the pressure that they put on at the start. But when it comes down to it, Babar Azam is too good a player against the United States to be a negative in strike rate for that long. And when he did want to come down and attack the spinners, he looked like he had, no problem doing so and hit some big hits. It's just that there was a perfect moment that I saw where he hit a 6 at the start of an over, and it might have actually been against Jasdeep Singh, not the spinners. But he hit a 6 at the start of the over, and the next ball was a full ball outside off stump that he could have attacked again. And instead, he intentionally hit it for a single. He doesn't think about T20 cricket in the way that other people do. All of that said, where is Pakistan if he doesn't make 44? We've got to be honest. It was a slow innings. He did take up over a third of the innings for only 44 runs. But no one else on that side made any runs. And the one player who I thought was going to change the game completely was Shadab Khan. So he made 40 off 25, and 3 of those were sixes. And we've seen at that Dallas ground, once you start to hit sixes, it just feels like it's almost like your bat is made, you've got, what do they say in baseball? Corked in the bat, corked bat, and suddenly the ball is just bouncing off it in a ridiculous way. And so you look at what he was doing at that point, and he kind of got to that kind of mode. Then he had treatment. And I thought it was a good chance for Pakistan to have a good conversation, go, where we've got back in front here. This is the time now where we completely push ahead. And I still thought they could make 180, 190 at that point. Maybe even 200 if things went absolutely ballistic at the end. I've seen mixed results of USA bowling at the death. So I thought there was a chance that they could just get on a roll and absolutely go down. Instead, he gets treatment. And if I remember correctly, and to be honest, I don't remember correctly. But the next ball, he scoops the ball from a bad ball, from what was that boundary ball, maybe even a 6 ball, and he sweeps it. And again, he finds short, fine leg. And that was a huge wicket. But it was more of an impact because the next ball, they lost another one. Azim came out and had a bit of a lazy shot first ball, which sometimes happens, especially against spin bowling. And suddenly they had lost 5 wickets and they were in the 13th over. So just at that point when they got back on top, they looked like they were about to score really quickly. They had to rebuild again. And if you have a look at that stage, you can understand why Baba Azam went to the position that he did. That doesn't really justify how slow he batted, but that's cricket, right? You lose a couple of wickets and players will quite often naturally just slow down. The big thing I think for the USA is their ability to get wickets all the way through the innings. So yes, the 3 wickets at the start were really great, but we've seen associate teams do that before and not be able to keep up the pressure. The 2 wickets in the middle, there was one really good wicket and one kind of bonusy wicket in Azam Khan. That was really cool. But then they chipped in with a couple more later on as well. Every time Pakistan was about to explode, they had to rebuild, and it just kept happening consistently all the way through. And so in the end, Pakistan end with 159. I think the pass score on that wicket was probably around 180. 159 was less than that, but you then look at the bowlers that Pakistan have and the USA's batting lineup, right? So one thing I know from someone who worked briefly for minor league cricket, I got my minor league cricket shirt on today with me. But one thing that I know from working in minor league cricket is there aren't a lot of quick bowlers in the USA in the lower levels. Ali Khan is a complete outlier. And so how they are going to handle the bowlers that at 85, 90, 92, 93 miles an hour, that kind of level of bowler, that was the big question, right? And the other question was, the ball didn't do a whole lot at the start of the game, but would it do a little bit more for Pakistan? And at high pace, was that going to be enough? Then Pakistan came out to bowl, and at times they looked like they were chasing wickets. At times it looked like they weren't really sure what their best ball was on this pitch. And because of that, they really didn't start well. And it allowed the USA to get into their chase. They didn't have to force the ball away because they were given opportunities to score so regularly. And so by the time Stephen Taylor went out, they'd put on about 30 or 40 runs, 36 runs in 5.1 overs. Not huge. They hadn't taken the game away, but they had gotten into the game. You see sometimes when a team, we saw Oman versus Australia, they get into a chase and they go, look, that total is gettable. A lot of things have to go right for us, but it is gettable. And then they go out and they're a little bit nervous because of that opportunity to win. That wasn't what we saw with the USA, right? They eased their way in. They were comfortable. They were facing, Shaheen Afridi and Muhammad Amir and Nasim Shah, and they got themselves into their innings. I thought Nasim Shah was probably the moment where it changed a little bit back, because at that stage, he did look a slightly different kettle of fish, as a bowler. But there was also things that still went the USA's way. Andreas Suss got an edge that didn't carry, right? You're facing the fastest bowlers that he's faced since he was probably, facing some guys back in South Africa consistently back when he was younger, and probably faster than that, if we're being honest. And he gets an edge and it doesn't carry. Like, sometimes things just go your way. And him and Monang, they took the score from 36 all the way through to, did they get to 100? 104. That's a big partnership in a chase of 160, right? That's a really big partnership. And that does 2 things. One, everyone who comes in later just has to play cameos. And that's such an important thing in associate cricket. It's so hard to expect all these players to play their best innings ever. Generally in associate cricket, what we tend to see is teams just put themselves into a position where one player does something really great and then everyone else can do the cameo. In this case, it was a partnership. And then from then on in, everyone else doesn't have to carry a massive load. So Pakistan do fight back, of course, at that point. And they get both of those guys out when the score's on about 110, 105, respectively. I think that's about right. But the ball was changed. And I think this is really, really interesting, this part as well. Because when the ball was changed, Pakistan managed to get the ball to reverse almost instantly. I think Rusty Theron might have some conversations on Twitter where he needs to talk about that a little bit. But there's absolutely no doubt that that ball started to reverse really, really quickly afterwards. And it never went violently, of course. It was more a gentle fade for a lot of those deliveries. But when you're facing bowlers at 85, 90 miles an hour who are reversing it, and you're not used to, at least one of those things, but certainly the combination of those things, It really does play a big part. The problem for Pakistan is that their bowlers started to put pressure back on, but their fielding and their wides did not. So altogether, Pakistan bowled 7 more wides than the USA. Sometimes that doesn't mean exactly what you think it means, because there was a small boundary on one side. They might have been trying to bowl to that boundary by putting it out wide, and because of that, they went for a few extra runs. But they were willing to do that to build up dot balls. But either way, they built a lot of pressure on the USA through singles and dot balls and got it back to a favorable mathematical chase for Pakistan with the bowlers they had to come. And that allowed for them to get back in the game. But the fielding and the wides certainly was a reason that the USA stayed there. And I also thought that they had a chance. They had 2 chances, USA, to bring in Corey Anderson. And I think the first wicket was the 15th over. Was it 13th over and then the 15th over? So 14th over and the 15th over. That's 2 pretty good positions for Corey Anderson to come out. He could have been a runner ball after 2 overs. And then all you need is him to hit a couple of big shots. And then suddenly they're massively ahead in that game. And that's what they needed. They probably needed guys to muscle it. And instead at that stage, you had 2 guys who were really more looking for singles and twos. And that is very hard to do off reverse swinging bowling from, bowlers of that quality. But the big issue really was that there were wickets in hand. And so the USA never had to panic until it got to that last over position because of that. And that goes back to Pakistan's biggest weakness that we've been talking about probably for a couple of World Cups now. Well, no, yeah, ODI World Cup and a T20 World Cup, which is Pakistan no longer have the spin bowling that they once had, right? They no longer have the ability to bowl spin and take wickets. And Shadab Khan, he bowled 3 overs for 27, and Iftikhar Ahmed bowled 1 over for 10. So they didn't bowl economically either. If Imad Wasim was available, maybe he would fit in, but that would have obviously changed Pakistan's pace bowling lineup a little bit. So who knows if they would have gone for that. But it would have allowed them one more bowler that could have locked down parts of the game. And had they been able to do that earlier, that would have put more pressure on USA to play big shots, which might have meant more wickets trickling in. Who knows? Who knows how these things go? But they essentially got themselves back into a position, Pakistan, where they should have won this game. And then Aaron Jones again found a way to hit a 6. He's a beautiful striker of the ball. Remember, though, Shahid Afridi had dropped him. Right? So he hit that 6 after he had been dropped. And we saw that in the games last night. Key fielding errors just going against teams. But then the last ball from Haris Rauf, he didn't stick the landing, right? He didn't stick the landing. And sometimes it's as simple as that. Anyway, I'm going to take a quick break because before I get to the super over, I mean, we need breaks between the regular innings and the super over, but the scores were tied. What a comeback it was by the USA, but what a comeback it had been earlier by Pakistan as well. When we come back after the ad, I will try and explain the super over in the best way that I remember it, but it is also worth noting by that stage that my brain had completely and utterly turned to mash. Remember, if you're seeing this on the main channel, we just threw this up on the main channel randomly this time, but we do all these lives on Jared Kimber live. Go over and find that on YouTube, and we have been doing a live for every day of this World Cup. And if we're being honest, we've been doing lives several days of this World Cup because after some really good games, we've been going live as well. So yeah, sometimes I've been going live 3 times in one day. It's like a Crowded House song in here.
Good Areas is our other YouTube channel, and twice a week it covers the great cricket stories from today and from 200 years ago, like how a late 1800s blogger decided which games were tests, and that actually stuck. Also, why Ishant Sharma was one of the biggest comebacks we'd ever seen in our sport, and whether captaincy affects batting. For all of this and more, go to Good Areas twice a week. In cricket, we protected our groin a full century before we looked after our brain. So don't be like our sport. If you need a VPN, go Nord. Use nordvpn.com/Kimber to get a huge discount on your NordVPN plan, plus 4 additional months for free. It's completely risk-free as well with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the show notes. Cricket wouldn't be the same without protection, and neither is your computer. Use NordVPN today.
And just one more kind of live ad, I suppose, is that my new book has been released that you can go and find on Amazon at the moment. And hilariously, it is about the biggest upsets in cricket, but it's more about them or as they relate to England. So what it is like for teams to beat England for the first time, how did they do it, what sort of impact did it have on their cricket? It's all the way from the 1800s through to Afghanistan beating them at the last ODI World Cup. We did it as a podcast series. This is kind of a little bit more information on each of the games and or the situations that we have. So, we might need to do one for Pakistan as these random sides keep beating Pakistan. But if you do get a chance, the link is in the show notes as well to Amazon, but you can find it in other places as well. But let's get rid of that ad for a minute and come back and finish this with a super over. So I've got many theories on the super over, some of which kind of came true today and some of which didn't. Quite often the team that has expended more energy to get back into the game is the one that struggles a little bit in the super over. So I thought USA might struggle a little bit there. But then another one of my theories came in, which is if you hit a boundary early in the super over, it really does free you up a little bit. And it frees you up from a couple of things. You're not chasing as much. So you see a lot of super overs where there'll be like a dot ball and a single off the first two balls. And then by the third ball, guys are just swinging so hard that they're losing their shape. Their head is falling over and they're really trying to slog rather than just sit in their crease and whack the ball away. And that's a huge issue, obviously, at that stage. Whereas if you hit a boundary early on, and they backed it up with a 2 as well, what it allows you to do after that is if the ball's there to hit for a 4 and a 6, obviously you still try and do that. But if it's not there for a 4 and a 6, really what you do at that stage is you can get a bunch of 2s, right? And if you can get 2 or 3 2s on top of your 4 or 6 from the start, you're now looking at a double figures over. And once you get to a double figures over, you're giving your bowler a really good chance on the other end, right? You want to be probably plus 12 or plus 14, but even if you can get to 12, that's a huge thing. That's not exactly what happened in this over, but there were parts of it. And I thought that it allowed Aaron Jones to wait for a ball to be in his area. But what the hell happened to Pakistan in this over? They completely lost their cool. I thought they obviously went full and wide, and the reasoning being there that meant that the ball had to be dragged to the longer boundary. That makes a lot of sense, and it's exactly what the USA tried to do as well. But Muhammad Amir didn't quite nail them. The problem was he was bowling wides, and then Mohammad Rizwan was struggling to take the wides, and then they were getting extra runs. So each wide was worth double what it should have been. That is crazy. And then the other thing that probably happened to Pakistan at that stage was that the umpires called them all. Even the ones that maybe the line ball and could have gone Pakistan's way went USA's way. And if you look at the next super over, there was another line ball one that went the USA's way that could have gone Pakistan's way. So suddenly everything was going. They didn't really seem to know what they were doing in the field. And then we had that, ridiculous situation where Mohammad Rizwan is trying to throw the ball back to Muhammad Amir because the USA batters are out of their crease, and it ends up going over his head. And because of that, they get an extra run. Like, it was just absolutely shambolic. You should not be able to score 18 runs. I think it was 18. I would have to go back and check now. Doesn't come up on normal scoreboards, does it? Whatever they had to score in the super over, that I should have looked at before I came here, you shouldn't be allowing that many runs from one boundary. But it was just one of those overs where the theory they went with didn't quite work, and then the execution from the bowler and the wicketkeeper and the fielding in general was not up to scratch. And so it was really, really poor. And so it meant really that USA got a total without having to panic or overhit or anything like that. However, there was still a big chance, of course, in that super over of the USA struggling. They went with their left arm bowler over Ali Khan. Ali Khan's clearly the better bowler out of the two of them. He's played in the IPL. But they went with, this engineering, I want to say student, but I don't think he's a student anymore. I think he has a job. But traditionally, they went with Saurabh Netravalika, bowling, again, left arm, but slower than Muhammad Amir, wide balls. And they just got ahead of the count, right? Once they got ahead of the count a little bit there, that was a huge problem for Pakistan, and they never quite managed to pull it back. And so the bowler kept the ball just on the right side of the wide line, and the wicketkeeper, Monank Patel, the captain, took the ball. And that was a huge difference in the end, but from what we saw in the first Super Over. Both teams went with a very similar plan, but it didn't quite work for both of them for a couple of different reasons. So then it comes right down to the end, and the last ball from Netravalika was just better than Haris Rauf's last ball. Right? Now, one guy was trying to defend a 6 and the other guy was trying to defend a 4. It's a slightly different situation. All these things are, very fair. Although I suppose Haris Rauf also was trying to defend a 6, but you know what I mean. But the truth is that one guy just executed and the other guy didn't. And when it comes down to it, that's kind of the difference in those in the last over of the game and then the last couple of overs when you look at the Super Over. And that is why the USA won. However, I want to talk about one other thing here that I thought was absolutely wild. And it probably won't be talked about a lot, but I want to talk about this a little bit. I'm going to start with, and I'll pronounce this really wrong because I'm not very good at this, like I'm not with Netravalika's name. But Andre Guhus as well. I'm learning these new names as they come to me. But there is a theory in Pakistan cricket, which I think Sakleen Mushtaq, their former spinner, came up with, which is Quadrat Kat Nazim, which is that things kind of happen for Pakistan for everything to come together at the right time. And there's a great story from last T20 World Cup that I wrote about Baz the leader and getting hit in the face and how that changed everything for Pakistan, weirdly, from then on in the tournament. And they ran to the final before losing to England. And so this is kind of this magical belief of it doesn't really matter what Pakistan do. It doesn't really matter what their form is like. Some stage in a World Cup, something's all going to go right for them. And then occasionally that's going to end up in them winning the tournament. So in the Pakistan innings, when I believe it was when the two tailenders were batting together right at the end, they had a moment where they scored 2 runs. But the way they scored these 2 runs was actually really interesting. There was a swing and the miss from the striker. And so the tailenders were thinking about whether they should try and steal a run there. And then they realized that they shouldn't, and they went back to their positions. And so the USA captain, who is also their wicketkeeper, Monank Patel, who I think I called Monank someone else before. Too many new names for me to learn at this World Cup. He was about to throw down the stumps. And then at the last minute, he realized, oh no, they're going back into their crease. I don't need to do this. I don't want to give away a run accidentally. And so he scoops the ball up quite safely back to the bowler. Unfortunately for him, because he was in the middle of the first throw and then changed his mind, he just didn't throw the ball back to the bowler the way he wanted to. Goes over the top, and Pakistan's tailenders steal 2 runs. However, the umpire then decides that the keeper had abandoned his throw at the stumps and wasn't throwing for a run-out chance and wasn't throwing because the ball was live, but just to pass the ball back to the bowler. He was essentially what the umpires were saying at that point is that the wicketkeeper was passing the ball to the bowler, which in cricket terms means the ball has gone dead. You could have read it both ways. I think the umpire probably got this right. But I would see other umpires who'd be like, I don't know, you were kind of halfway through this other throw, and those guys were a little bit jittery around their crease. And so we're not sure. But after a conversation, they decided, no, the ball was dead. So the 2 runs were taken off Pakistan's total. But why this is more funny is because, of course, in the Super Over, they ruled that Rizwan was passing the ball to Amir while the game was still live, and that he was thinking about a run-out chance, or the players were still out of their crease, which I would have to go back and have a look. So if you think about it in some ways, Pakistan stole 2 runs and had to give them back, and so lost them, and USA stole 1 run. But why this is more important is, of course, the game was tied. And Pakistan ran 2 extra runs, and they didn't go to them. So to get back to Sakleen Mushtaq for a moment, what is the anti-Quadrat Kat Nizam? Right? Is that what we just saw? Did we just see them lose this spectacular game because of a weird, archaic law of cricket that most cricket fans don't even truly understand? The whole idea of when the ball is dead and when the ball is live and how the wicketkeeper passing the ball back to the fielders or the bowlers plays a part in this. It's like a murky, weird conversation that I would say most people I've played cricket with don't understand, let alone cricket fans in general. So what did we see? Is this it? Is this the anti Quadrat Nizam and they're just going to fall apart? Or is this peak Pakistan? And this is what they needed to do. Like when in the '99 World Cup, when they lost against when they lost against Bangladesh, and then came back and stormed into the final, right? Or the '92 World Cup when they lost like all of their games, and the only reason they weren't kicked out of the tournament was because a game that they were most probably going to lose got washed out. Is that what we are seeing here? Because Pakistan is the masters of the dark origin story, the weird and twisted beginning and the spectacular finish. And can you get more spectacular than Pakistan losing to the USA? And the USA now, let's focus on them, because what an effort this was. Their administration is in complete disarray. Their Major League Cricket, which was the big thing that's supposed to save cricket in the USA, like almost fell apart as it was coming together. We have seen them beat teams, test teams like Ireland and Bangladesh of recent times, but we've also seen Mustafizur Rahman run through them. USA really should have lost that game to Canada, right? If Canada bowl again with that new ball under lights, they probably beat the USA. There are so many ways that USA cricket has shown signs and fallen apart, whether it be competitions or hosting cricket games or their own form or players that they have access to. Not to mention the fact that there are so many good young US players who come through and just disappear and don't quite make it to the next level. Like USA cricket has been great before. We know about Bart King. We're going to be doing a video on Bart King and USA's history in cricket in a couple of days. They have a proper history of cricket. They're involved in the games. Benjamin Franklin owned a set of cricket laws. George Washington played a version of cricket. It was a part of the media and talking about society in the 1800s in the US. And then it just fades away, right? And it fades away pretty much from then, from 1908 or whenever it was the last time they toured England and did quite well, all the way through to now, where they beat Pakistan. And of course they beat Pakistan, because in some ways beating Pakistan is the best way to start your journey into the next level of cricket. Ask Ireland, ask Bangladesh, right? Beating Pakistan is more dramatic and more fun than beating any other side. England is the spiritual one you want to beat, and Australia and India are the two really important ones eventually, right? But Pakistan, they're the firecracker team. That's the team. And they're the team that give you a chance. Go back through this game. There were times where Pakistan was well on top and they kept giving USA a chance. And look at this team of semi-amateurs, of guys who play minor league cricket, you know, who are shipped around a few weekends of the year, guys who've been in and out of the USA team, guys who were overlooked for the USA team, amateurs, semi-professionals, former professionals from other countries getting second chances, you know, guys who have grown up in the USA, guys who've come from other countries. They've all come together to produce this incredible T20 game. And it was an absolute pleasure to be able to watch it. I really did enjoy it. And I think I would have enjoyed it even if Pakistan had got over the line. But, you know, say what you will about Pakistan, when they have a chance of doing the right thing or doing the most entertaining thing, they most always choose the most entertaining. And in this case, it has given us a USA victory at a World Cup over a test playing nation. There is still an outside chance, and it's less of an outside chance than it was before this game, that USA might actually be in the second round of this tournament. Wow. Thank you very much for being here. Support our sponsors. Remember, my book is out if you can find it. If you are on the main channel and you've come in, we're doing this every day on the other channel. Come to the live channel. That's why we tell you about it all the time. Come over to the live channel. We do podcasts, we do live videos, we do live reactions. We do this. This is what I do on the live channel. every day. I'm Jared Kimber. This was the scoreboard, sort of. It wasn't really the scoreboard, was it? I mean, it was scoreboard-like. I don't even think I put scoreboard in the title, but it was scoreboard-ish. And I will be back again tomorrow. And let's be honest, if something ridiculous happens in Namibia, Scotland, I'll probably be over on Jared Kimber Live doing that again as well. But thank you very much to everyone for turning up here. This is the biggest live we've had so far in this World Cup, and it's not a good time zone. I know it's got nothing to do with me. The reason that you're all here is because the USA beat Pakistan in a World Cup at cricket. And saying that out loud still seems very, very silly. But I loved each and every moment of it. Goodbye.
Sometimes you just need to take the slips out and bowl defensively. And you need to be just as careful with your computer's defenses as well. And for that, why not use nordvpn.com/Kimber to get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan and 4 additional months for free. It's also completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Sounds like roaming slang, but it's not. The link is in the show notes. So put in some dot balls and turn them into maidens via nordvpn.com/Kimber. If you make a lot of content like me, you will need help. And that is why we use Minvo.pro, a slicing and dicing tool that uses AI to conjure up great clips from your podcast chats and meetings. If you make content, go to Minvo.pro to cut it.